He lived in a world that many could only dream of. The billionaire was not born into wealth. Every dollar he owned came from his own hard work, late nights, and tireless determination. But money had never changed the way he treated people. He was respected not only for his business achievements, but for his generosity and the way he carried himself in private life. Despite his busy schedule, he always found time for his mother. She had been his anchor through every storm, his guiding light through his struggles, and he loved her deeply. His mother was elderly now, her hands lined with years of hard work, her hair silver with age. She had a gentle voice and a smile that could light up the room. She had raised him with love and discipline, teaching him the values that guided his life. Their bond was unbreakable, and he often reminded himself that no success in the world would ever replace her presence. The fiancée entered his life like a whirlwind. She was beautiful, confident, and seemed to understand him like no one else did. She laughed at his jokes, supported his ideas, and appeared to be genuinely interested in his world. Friends and colleagues admired their relationship, often commenting on how perfect they looked together. He believed he had found someone who could walk beside him, not just in wealth but in life. At first, everything seemed perfect. Dinner dates, weekend getaways, quiet moments in his home. Life felt complete. His mother, initially cautious about the new relationship, had begun to warm up to her. They shared polite conversations, and the billionaire believed that his mother's approval was quietly forming in the background. There were small gestures of kindness from the fiancée that made him think she truly cared about his family. He felt happy, secure, and hopeful for the future. But life rarely stays simple. Behind the charming smile and soft words, there were moments that hinted at a different side. It started with little things, unnoticed or easily dismissed. A sharp tone when his mother spoke, an impatient glance when she asked a question, a subtle eye roll when she shared a memory from the past. At first he ignored them, telling himself that everyone has bad days. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe she didn't realize how her words affected others. He wanted to believe in the best, and he thought love required patience and understanding. Life at the mansion was busy, yet cozy. The billionaire often spent his mornings in meetings and his evenings reviewing plans and strategies for his company. His mother, now retired, enjoyed spending her time gardening, cooking, and sharing small moments of her life with him. Even though she had lived a long life, she still radiated warmth and wisdom, offering guidance when he sought it and comfort when the world felt heavy. She was not just his mother. She was his friend, his confidant, and sometimes his silent critic, always speaking from love. The fiancée began to reveal more of her true nature during family gatherings. She would complain quietly about the meals his mother prepared, suggesting alternatives or making offhand remarks about how things could be done better. She often interrupted conversations with quick retorts or sarcastic comments. At first, these were small and easy to overlook. He would laugh them off or change the subject, thinking it was just a momentary lapse. He told himself that no one is perfect, not even the woman he loved. There were times when he noticed his mother's discomfort, a fleeting sadness in her eyes, a pause before she responded, a gentle sigh she tried to hide. He wanted to protect her, but he also feared confrontation. He believed that with time, his fiancée would adjust, that she would learn to respect the people who mattered most to him. He clung to hope, ignoring the growing tension like a shadow he didn't want to face. Every evening after work, he would return home to see his mother in the kitchen, preparing something simple and comforting. She would greet him with a smile, asking about his day, sharing stories from her past, and sometimes offering advice on matters large and small. Her presence was a constant source of calm in a world that often felt chaotic. It was in these moments that he felt truly at peace, away from meetings, contracts, and the constant pressure of his empire. The fiancée, however, often struggled in this environment. She didn't share the same calm and gentle nature. Her voice carried impatience when she spoke to his mother, and her words sometimes lacked the warmth that should accompany kindness. The billionaire noticed the subtle tension growing, a strain between two people who were supposed to be part of the same family. He felt torn. He loved his fiancée, but he could not ignore the discomfort she caused the woman who had given him everything. Despite these small conflicts, there were moments of harmony. The three of them would share meals, enjoy quiet conversations, or watch old movies together. These fleeting instances gave him hope that perhaps his fiancée's impatience was only temporary, a result of nervousness or unfamiliarity. He clung to these moments, believing that love and understanding could bridge the gap. But life has a way of revealing truth, often when least expected. One evening, the billionaire had arranged a family dinner, inviting close friends and business associates. His mother was excited, preparing a simple yet heartfelt meal, wanting to create a warm and welcoming atmosphere. She had spent hours making sure every detail was perfect, from the aroma of fresh bread to the small garnishes on each plate. Her joy was in sharing, in creating comfort and happiness for those she loved. As the guests arrived, the fiancé's demeanor began to shift. Small criticisms, previously subtle, became more pronounced. She complained about the way the table was set, the temperature of the soup, and even the color of the napkins. At first, the billionaire tried to intervene, offering gentle reassurances and diverting the conversation. But her words grew sharper and her tone carried a sense of superiority that could not be ignored. His mother, ever gracious, tried to respond with patience and humility, but the hurt was visible. Her hands trembled slightly as she served the dishes, her voice faltering under the weight of the unkind remarks. The billionaire felt a pang of guilt for not noticing the depth of her pain sooner. He realized that he could no longer ignore the subtle signs. The moments he had brushed aside were not isolated incidents but part of a larger pattern. The tension in the room became palpable. Guests exchanged awkward glances, unsure whether to intervene or remain silent. The billionaire's heart raced, caught between protecting his mother and confronting the woman he loved. He had spent years building a life of success and stability, yet in this moment he felt powerless. The woman he had trusted to be his partner was revealing a side he could no longer dismiss. As the evening progressed, the fiancé's behavior continued to escalate. She laughed at small mistakes, made sarcastic remarks about his mother's age and abilities, and dismissed her opinions as outdated. The billionaire, witnessing this firsthand, felt a surge of anger and disappointment. He realized that this was not a moment of stress or a bad day. This was a reflection of her true character. His mother, quiet and dignified, did not retaliate. She absorbed the insults with grace, choosing not to escalate the situation. Her eyes, however, betrayed the hurt she felt. The billionaire watched her, feeling a deep protective instinct awaken. He knew that he had to act, not out of anger alone, but out of love and respect for the woman who had given him everything. The rest of the evening passed in a tense silence. Guests left with polite smiles, sensing the underlying conflict but unaware of the depth of the situation. The billionaire stayed with his mother after everyone had gone, helping her clear the table and offering words of comfort. He reassured her that she had done nothing wrong and that he valued her above all else. That night he lay awake thinking about the events that had unfolded. He reflected on the small incidents he had previously ignored, understanding now that they were not minor but indicative of a larger problem. He realized that love required more than charm and attraction. It required respect, empathy, and kindness toward those who mattered most. His mother had always taught him this lesson, and now life was presenting him with a challenge that tested his values. He understood that the coming days would require difficult decisions. Confronting his fiancée about her behavior would not be easy, but he knew it was necessary. He had built an empire on principles of honesty, integrity, and respect, and he could not compromise those values, even for love. His mother's well-being and dignity were paramount, and he vowed to protect her at all costs. As dawn broke, he watched his mother in the kitchen, preparing breakfast with her usual care and warmth. He realized that true happiness could not coexist with disrespect and cruelty. He knew that the choices he made in the coming days would shape not only his personal life, but the foundation of his family's future. In that quiet morning light, he resolved to face the truth, confront the challenges, and ensure that love and respect remained at the heart of his life. The next morning began quietly, but the tension from the previous night lingered in the air. The billionaire could not shake the image of his mother's saddened face or the sharpness in his fiancée's words. He had spent the night replaying the events over and over, analyzing her behavior and questioning whether he had been blind to the truth all along. Despite the luxury around him, he felt a heaviness he could not ignore. His mother, unaware of the storm brewing in his mind, moved through the house with her usual grace. She smiled when she saw him, offering a warm greeting and asking about his sleep. Her presence was a soothing balm to his troubled thoughts, and he felt a renewed sense of responsibility to protect her from further hurt. He knew he could no longer pretend that small offenses could be ignored. They were signs of a deeper problem. Later that morning, the fiancée appeared, dressed elegantly and wearing her usual confident smile. She greeted him cheerfully, as if nothing had happened, and began discussing plans for their upcoming trip. Her tone was light, almost playful, but beneath it he sensed the same impatience and subtle dismissiveness toward his mother that he had witnessed before. It was like a shadow she could not hide, and now he could see it clearly. The billionaire decided it was time to observe her more closely, not out of suspicion, but out of concern. He needed to understand whether this behavior was occasional frustration or part of her true character. Throughout the day, he watched the interactions in the house. Every small remark, every impatient glance, every subtle interruption revealed the same pattern. His mother remained calm, responding with patience and kindness, but the fiancé's behavior never improved. It was becoming impossible to ignore. By afternoon, the tension reached a tipping point. The mother asked for help in the kitchen with some preparations for a casual tea gathering. She moved slowly, careful not to strain herself, while the fiancé hovered nearby, offering unsolicited advice. Her suggestions were sharp and critical, delivered with a sense of superiority. When the mother politely declined one of them, the fiancé's smile faltered and her voice became edged with irritation. The billionaire, standing in the doorway, felt a surge of anger and disappointment. He realized that this was not a matter of misunderstanding. It was a matter of character. He called her aside quietly, away from his mother, and spoke in a calm but firm tone. "I noticed how you spoke to my mother this morning," he said. "I need to know why you think it's acceptable to treat her that way. She has given me everything, and I cannot allow anyone to disrespect her." The fiancé responded with defensiveness. "I wasn't trying to be mean. I was just trying to help. She's old-fashioned, and some things could be done differently. I'm just trying to make things better." Her words struck him, but not in the way she expected. He realized that her attempts to help were really just a mask for impatience and a lack of respect. He could no longer justify ignoring her behavior. Love could not exist where kindness and respect were absent, especially toward someone who had shaped his entire life. Meanwhile, his mother continued with her preparations, unaware of the private confrontation. She hummed softly, her movements steady and deliberate. The billionaire watched her, feeling a renewed sense of protectiveness. He understood that he could not allow anyone, even the woman he loved, to cause her pain. He also understood that difficult decisions lay ahead, and that he had to act thoughtfully and decisively. As the afternoon progressed, he decided to speak with his mother, not to burden her with conflict, but to seek her perspective. He gently took her hand and led her to a quiet corner of the house. "I saw what happened this morning," he said softly. "I need to know how you feel. I want to understand everything." His mother looked into his eyes, her gaze steady. "I appreciate you asking," she said quietly. "I don't want to make things difficult, but I will admit that I felt hurt." Her words were sharp, and she seemed impatient with me. "I have always wanted to support your happiness, and I have tried to be patient, but it does affect me. It is not about pride. It is about respect and love. I only want to be treated with kindness, as anyone should be." Her words resonated deeply with him. He realized that he had been caught between hope and reality, wanting to believe in the goodness of his fiancée, while ignoring the growing evidence of her behavior. He felt a mixture of sadness, disappointment, and determination. He could not allow this to continue, not for the sake of his mother and not for the sake of his own values. That evening he decided to confront the fiancée more directly, but with a different approach. He invited her to sit with him in the study, a private and calm environment where they could speak openly. "I have observed your behavior," he began, his tone steady. "I see how you treat my mother, and it concerns me deeply. I need to know if you can treat her with the respect she deserves. She has given me everything, and anyone who is part of my life must honor that." The fiancé's expression shifted from confidence to irritation. "I don't think you understand. I'm not being rude. I'm just being honest. She is old, set in her ways, and sometimes she frustrates me. I can't just pretend everything she does is perfect." He listened carefully, but his heart knew the truth. This was not honesty. It was a lack of empathy and patience. He realized that her behavior was unlikely to change, and that love alone could not bridge the gap between respect and cruelty. He also realized that he could not compromise his principles for the sake of appearances or social approval. His mother's dignity and well-being came first. The fiancée, sensing his determination, tried to sway him with charm and apologies, claiming she did not intend harm. But he remained calm and firm, understanding that actions spoke louder than words. He had witnessed the repeated pattern of behavior, and he knew that the choice he made now would define the rest of his life. Throughout the evening, he observed the interactions in the house. The fiancée continued to struggle with patience, her impatience surfacing in small ways, even in seemingly trivial moments. The billionaire recognized that this was not a momentary lapse. It was part of her true character. He began to accept the reality that he had hoped to avoid. This relationship, despite love or attraction, could not continue if respect and kindness were absent. Later, he spent time with his mother in the quiet of the living room. They shared tea and conversation, reflecting on the day. He expressed his concern and disappointment, while she reassured him of her love and support. She encouraged him to follow his instincts and uphold his values, reminding him that true love does not coexist with disrespect. The night ended with a sense of clarity, even amid lingering sadness. The billionaire realized that difficult decisions lay ahead, and that he had to face them with courage and integrity. He understood that protecting his mother and preserving the values she had instilled in him were more important than any relationship or social expectation. He also understood that love, when tested, must be weighed against character and respect. As he lay in bed that night, he reflected on the events of the day and the lessons they carried. He had learned that appearances can be deceiving, that charm and attraction do not always reflect true character. He had learned that respect, kindness, and empathy are essential in relationships, especially toward those who have shaped our lives. And he had learned that difficult choices, while painful, are necessary to protect the people we love and the values we hold dear. The billionaire knew that the coming days would require courage and clarity. He would have to confront his fiancée, set boundaries, and make decisions that would affect not only his life but the well-being of his mother and the integrity of his family. Yet despite the challenges ahead, he felt a sense of resolve. He would not compromise on what truly mattered, and he would ensure that respect, love, and dignity remained at the heart of his life. The next few days passed slowly, filled with an uneasy silence that hung heavy in the air. The billionaire tried to keep his focus on work, but his thoughts kept returning to what had happened. Every memory of his fiancée's sharp words and his mother's hurt expression played in his mind again and again. He knew something had changed inside him. The love he once felt so strongly had turned into confusion, doubt, and quiet disappointment. His mother carried on with her usual calmness, never bringing up the incident again. She moved around the house gently, tending to her plants and preparing meals as she always did, but he could tell she was being extra careful not to cause trouble. It broke his heart to see her walking on eggshells in her own home, afraid to upset the woman who should have treated her with love and respect. The billionaire decided to take a step back before making any decisions. He wanted to observe to see if things could still change. He hoped deep down that maybe his fiancée would reflect on her actions and realize the harm she had caused. But what he saw instead only confirmed what his heart already knew. One morning he left for a business meeting earlier than usual, but returned home unexpectedly to pick up some files. As he entered through the side door, he heard voices from the living room. It was his fiancée and his mother. He paused, staying out of sight, not because he wanted to spy, but because something in their tones caught his attention. His mother's voice was calm as always. She was offering the fiancé tea, asking if she would like something light for breakfast. The fiancé's response, however, was cold. "No, thank you," she said sharply. "I've told you before I don't drink that kind of tea, and you don't have to keep fussing over me. I can take care of myself." His mother chuckled softly, trying to keep the atmosphere friendly. "I just wanted to make sure you're comfortable, dear. I know it's not easy living with someone else's ways." The fiancé sighed impatiently. "Yes, but sometimes you act like I don't know anything. You treat me like a child. I understand you mean well, but it's too much." The billionaire's heart sank. His mother's voice trembled slightly as she replied, "I'm sorry if it feels that way. I just want to make you feel at home." He could hear the fiancé moving around, the clinking of cups. Then her voice came again, lower but still sharp. "You don't need to. Honestly, I wish you'd just let things be. I know you mean well, but sometimes you make me uncomfortable. I don't like being told what to do. The billionaire stood frozen, his chest tightening. He didn't hear anger in his mother's voice, only quiet sadness. I understand, she said softly. I'll try to give you space. That moment was enough. He didn't need to hear more. He quietly stepped away, leaving the house before they noticed him. As he sat in his car, staring at the steering wheel, he felt a deep ache inside. It wasn't just anger. It was heartbreak. The woman he had trusted to be his future partner had shown a side of herself that he could never unsee. It wasn't about a single argument, it was about a lack of kindness. That evening, when he returned home, he found his mother reading quietly in her favorite chair. She looked peaceful, but her eyes held a sadness she tried to hide. He sat beside her, and for a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, he said softly, I heard what happened this morning. She looked surprised, then lowered her gaze. I didn't mean for you to hear that, she said. It's not important. Please don't make it a bigger problem. It is important, he replied gently. You deserve respect in your own home. You've done nothing wrong. I can't ignore it anymore. His mother reached for his hand. Don't make decisions in anger, she said. Sometimes people speak harshly without thinking. Maybe she'll learn. He smiled faintly, appreciating her endless patience, but deep down he knew the truth. People could make mistakes, but repeated cruelty was a choice. And this wasn't the first time. He had seen the same behavior again and again, and it was clear that change was unlikely. That night, the house was quiet. The fiancée acted as if nothing had happened, chatting about wedding plans and upcoming social events. She laughed, told stories, and tried to draw him into conversation. He responded politely, but his mind was elsewhere. He studied her face, her gestures, her tone. All the things he used to adore now felt distant and hollow. He wondered how he had missed the signs for so long. Later, when she went upstairs, he sat alone in the living room, staring at the family photos on the wall. There was one of him as a child, standing beside his mother in front of their old tiny house. Her smile in that picture said everything about love, sacrifice, and patience. That image reminded him of where he came from and what truly mattered. The next morning, he decided to talk to the fiancée openly and honestly. He invited her to join him in the garden, a quiet place where he often went to think. The air was fresh, and the flowers his mother tended to fill the space with a sweet scent. It was a place of peace, and he hoped it would help him speak calmly. I want to talk about something important, he began. It's about my mother. Her smile faded slightly. What about her? She asked, her tone already defensive. I've noticed how you speak to her, he said carefully. I've heard the way you treat her when you think no one is listening. It hurts me. She's done nothing but try to make you feel welcome. She's kind and patient. You don't have to agree with her on everything, but she deserves respect. The fiancée folded her arms. You're overreacting, she said. She's always hovering, always trying to tell me how to do things. It's exhausting. I've tried to be polite, but I can't pretend to be someone I'm not. He took a deep breath. It's not about pretending. It's about being kind. If you truly care about me, you need to care about the people I love. She looked away, her expression hardening. So what are you saying? That I'm not good enough because I don't get along with your mother? I'm saying, he replied quietly, that love without respect isn't real. My mother is part of my life. If you can't treat her with basic decency, I don't know how we can move forward. There was silence between them, filled with the sound of birds in the distance. The fiancée's eyes narrowed slightly and her voice turned cold. Maybe you should marry your mother then, she said sharply, since she's all you seem to care about. The words stung, but they also brought clarity. He realized that this was who she truly was, someone who saw kindness as weakness and respect as a burden. He stood up slowly, his heart heavy but resolute. I think we need time apart, he said. Maybe this isn't what we thought it was. She stared at him in disbelief. You can't be serious. I am, he said. I need to think, and you need to think about what kind of person you want to be. He walked away, leaving her standing in the garden. His steps felt both heavy and freeing. He didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew he could no longer stay silent. He had spent too long hoping that love alone could change someone's heart, but he now understood that real love required empathy and respect. Later that evening, his mother noticed his quiet mood. Did you talk to her? She asked gently. Yes, he said. And I think I finally understand what I need to do. She nodded slowly. Whatever happens, I'll be proud of you. You've always done what's right, even when it's hard. He smiled faintly. You taught me that. That night, he felt a mix of sadness and relief. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be questions from friends, whispers from the media, and disappointment from those who believed in the image of their perfect relationship. But he also knew that living with someone who disrespected the woman who gave him life was not something he could accept. As the night grew quiet, he sat by his mother's side watching her knit while the sound of the clock filled the room. For the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of peace. He didn't know exactly how everything would unfold, but he knew one thing for certain. He would choose love that honored, not love that hurt. And that decision, though painful, was the beginning of something far better than he had ever imagined. Days passed quietly after the conversation in the garden. The mansion, once filled with laughter and movement, now felt still. The billionaire kept to himself, spending long hours at work and returning home late. His fiancée noticed the distance but didn't try to bridge it. She seemed more irritated than remorseful, behaving as though she had been wronged instead of realizing the hurt she had caused. His mother, ever gentle and patient, moved through her days as if nothing had changed. But she sensed the unease in her son. She saw the worry in his eyes, the heaviness in his steps. She wanted to speak to him, to reassure him, but she also knew some lessons had to be learned through quiet reflection. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned orange, the billionaire sat alone on the balcony overlooking his garden. He watched the trees sway in the soft wind, thinking about everything that had happened. He thought about his mother's kindness, her patience, her willingness to forgive. Then he thought about his fiancée's sharp words, her dismissive tone, and the coldness in her eyes when she spoke to his mother. The contrast was undeniable. He realized that love without empathy was empty. What good was beauty or charm if there was no kindness behind it? What meaning did success hold if it didn't include respect for those who had sacrificed everything for him? He understood now that money could buy comfort, but it could never buy character. That night he went to his mother's room. She was sitting near the window, knitting quietly. When she looked up and saw him, she smiled gently, her eyes soft and full of understanding. He sat beside her and took her hand. I've made a decision, he said softly. I can't marry her. I've tried to make it work, but it's not right. I can't build a life with someone who doesn't respect you. His mother looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. I knew this day would come, she said, and I'm proud of you for seeing clearly. Love can be beautiful, but it should never make you forget who you are or what you stand for. He felt relief wash over him. Saying the words out loud made everything real. He knew the path ahead would be uncomfortable, but the truth gave him strength. I'll talk to her tomorrow, he said. I'll do it respectfully, but I need to be honest. The next morning, the fiancée was in the living room, scrolling through her phone. When he entered, she looked up with a faint smile, unaware of what was coming. Good morning, she said casually. You're up early. Are we still going to that charity dinner tonight? He shook his head. We need to talk first, her smile faded. About what? About us, he said calmly. About what's been happening between you and my mother. About the way things have been going. She sighed, setting her phone aside. Are we really doing this again? I thought we already talked about it. I said I was sorry if she felt offended. He took a deep breath, keeping his voice steady. It's not about apologies. It's about how you treat people. I can't spend my life with someone who disrespects the person who raised me. You've made it clear how you feel, and I can't ignore that anymore. Her eyes widened. You're breaking up with me? Over a few misunderstandings? It's not a few misunderstandings, he said quietly. It's a pattern, and I've ignored it long enough. I thought maybe it would change, but it hasn't. This isn't about wealth or pride, it's about values. And ours don't align. She stood up quickly, her tone turning defensive. So that's it? You're choosing her over me? I'm choosing respect, he said. And you should too. You could have had a good relationship with her if you had tried. But instead you chose to look down on her. I can't build a family with someone who doesn't understand the meaning of family. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she laughed bitterly. You'll regret this, she said. No one will ever understand you the way I do. He looked at her sadly. Maybe, but I'd rather be alone than with someone who makes my mother feel small. The room went silent. The fiancé, realizing he was serious, turned away and walked upstairs without another word. He didn't follow her. He just stood there for a moment, breathing deeply, feeling both sorrow and peace. He knew he had done the right thing. A few hours later, she packed her things. There were no arguments, no tears, just quiet resentment. When she finally left the mansion, the house felt lighter, as though the air itself had changed. His mother watched from the kitchen window, saying nothing, only whispering a small prayer for peace. That evening, the billionaire sat with his mother for dinner. The atmosphere was calm. She had prepared one of his favorite meals, something simple but comforting. They ate quietly, occasionally exchanging small smiles. After dinner, they went for a walk in the garden. The sky was clear and stars shimmered above them. "You did what you had to do," his mother said softly. "Sometimes life teaches us through pain, but pain also opens our eyes," he nodded. "I feel lighter even though it hurts. I guess I just needed to face the truth." She smiled faintly. "The truth always finds its way, no matter how long we try to hide from it." Over the next few days, word of the breakup spread quietly among friends and acquaintances. Some people were surprised, others curious, but the billionaire didn't care about gossip. He focused on his work and on spending time with his mother. Together they rebuilt the sense of peace that had been missing for so long. One afternoon, as he was leaving for a business meeting, his mother called out to him. "You look happier," she said with a smile. He laughed softly. "I think I am. It feels like I've been carrying a heavy weight and now it's gone." "That's what happens when you live honestly," she said. "You make space for better things." Her words stayed with him throughout the day. He realized that he had been chasing perfection in the wrong places, trying to build an image of love instead of nurturing the real thing. He understood now that real love wasn't about fancy dinners or expensive gifts. It was about care, kindness, and patience. His mother had lived by those values all her life, and he finally saw the wisdom in her simplicity. A week later, his mother's birthday arrived. He organized a quiet celebration at home, inviting only a few close friends. There was laughter, warmth, and genuine joy. When she blew out her candles, she looked at him with tears in her eyes. "You've given me the best gift already," she said. "Peace." He hugged her gently, his heart full. "You gave me everything," he whispered. "I just returned a small part of it." That night, as the house settled into silence, he walked out into the garden once more. The moonlight fell softly on the flowers his mother had planted. He thought about how much strength it took to choose what was right over what was easy. He thought about how his mother had never demanded anything from him, only love and understanding. He realized something important. The world could take away his money, his success, even his reputation. But as long as he had his mother's respect and his own peace of mind, he would always be rich in the ways that mattered most. From that day on, he promised himself to carry her values in everything he did, to treat people with kindness, to never let pride cloud his judgment, and to never forget the quiet strength of those who loved him unconditionally. Though the breakup had been painful, it became a turning point in his life. It reminded him that true wealth wasn't found in possessions or power, but in the hearts of those who love us genuinely. His mother's love had shaped him into the man he was, and now, free from pretense and hurt, he could finally live by the same honesty and grace she had always shown. As the night grew quiet, he looked up at the stars and smiled. For the first time in a long while, he felt peace, not the kind that comes from success or luxury, but the kind that comes from doing what's right. And deep inside, he knew his life was about to take a brighter, more meaningful turn. Months had passed since the breakup, and life inside the mansion had settled into a calm and peaceful rhythm. The billionaire had changed in quiet but meaningful ways. He had become more patient, more thoughtful, and more aware of the people around him. The bitterness from the past had faded, replaced by a steady sense of contentment. He spent more time with his mother, often joining her for tea in the mornings or walks in the garden during the evenings. The world outside still whispered about him. Newspapers occasionally mentioned his success, his donations, his growing influence in business. But none of that mattered as much to him anymore. What truly mattered were the quiet moments, the laughter he shared with his mother, the stories she told him about his childhood, and the peace that filled the home now that tension no longer lingered in the air. One day, while visiting one of his charity projects in a nearby town, he met a woman who worked as a volunteer. She was kind, humble, and treated everyone around her with warmth. She didn't know who he was at first. To her, he was just another person helping out. She laughed easily, spoke with sincerity, and had a gentle way of making people feel valued. For the first time in a long while, he found himself drawn to someone not because of appearance or charm, but because of her kindness. Over the following weeks, their paths crossed often. They talked about life, about family, about what really mattered. She told him that she believed a person's worth wasn't measured by what they had, but by how they treated others. Her words reminded him of his mother. It was as if life was quietly showing him that there were still people in the world who lived by kindness, just as his mother did. He didn't rush anything this time. He had learned his lesson. Instead, he took his time, observing, learning, and allowing things to unfold naturally. He introduced her to his mother one afternoon. The two women connected instantly. His mother, with her gentle smile, saw the light in the young woman's eyes and the sincerity in her heart. She knew right away that this was different. That evening, as they sat together after dinner, his mother turned to him and said softly, "She has a good heart. You can feel it. She treats everyone with respect." "That's rare," he smiled. "That's what I noticed too. It's not just how she talks to me, it's how she talks to everyone. There's no pretense." His mother nodded. "When love is built on kindness, it lasts. When it's built on pride, it fades." Her words stayed with him. For the first time in years, he felt hope, not the kind tied to wealth or image, but a quiet hope rooted in genuine connection. He realized that his heart had healed, and that he was ready to love again, this time the right way. Meanwhile, his ex-fiancée's life had taken a different turn. She had tried to move on quickly, appearing at parties and posting glamorous pictures online. But deep inside, she couldn't shake the feeling of regret. She had lost something valuable. Not the luxury or status, but the genuine affection of someone who had loved her deeply. She saw his name in the news sometimes, his face on magazine covers, and every time she felt a sting of remorse. She understood too late that kindness had been the one thing she couldn't fake. Back at the mansion, things grew brighter each day. The staff smiled more, the halls felt warmer, and laughter returned to the rooms. The billionaire's mother often watched her son from a distance, proud of the man he had become. He was no longer the quiet, burdened man who once struggled to choose between love and respect. Now, he was at peace with his choices. One weekend, he hosted a small event for the people working on his charity projects. It wasn't a grand affair, just a simple gathering with food, music, and joy. He gave a short speech thanking everyone for their hard work and dedication. When he spoke, his words carried sincerity and humility. He said, "Success means nothing if it doesn't make life better for others. My mother taught me that, and I see it every day in the kindness of people like you." His mother, standing nearby, smiled proudly. She could see how much he had grown, not just in business but in spirit. As the evening went on, music played softly in the background, and people chatted happily. The volunteer woman stood beside his mother, helping her serve tea to the guests. She didn't act like someone trying to impress anyone. She was just herself, kind, thoughtful, and genuine. His mother noticed the way her son looked at her, not with the intensity of infatuation, but with quiet admiration. Later that night, when the guests had left and the house had grown quiet again, the billionaire and his mother sat together on the balcony. The moonlight glowed softly across the garden. "She reminds me of you," he said suddenly, glancing at his mother. His mother chuckled softly. "Then you're seeing clearly, because what you see in her is what you learn to value in me. Kindness, patience, and understanding. Those are the things that keep love alive." He nodded slowly, understanding her completely. "I used to think love was about perfection," he said. "But now I know it's about peace." His mother smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "Peace and respect. When those two are there, love takes care of itself." From that night onward, his life continued to bloom in quiet, steady ways. He and the volunteer grew closer, not because of grand gestures, but through simple acts of care. They shared laughter, helped others together, and learned from each other. His mother watched them with contentment, her heart full of gratitude. She often said, "You found love through the lessons of kindness." Months later, the billionaire decided to propose again, but this time it was different. He didn't plan an extravagant event or invite the media. He chose a quiet evening in the garden where it had all started, the same garden where he had once felt the weight of heartbreak. This time he knelt under the soft glow of the lanterns and asked her to share a life built on honesty and compassion. She said yes, her eyes glistening with emotion. His mother, who had been watching from the balcony, wiped away a tear, whispering a silent prayer of thanks. Their wedding was small and filled with genuine joy. There were no photographers, no flashing lights, just family, close friends, and laughter. His mother sat near the front, her face glowing with pride. When the ceremony ended, he walked over to her and hugged her tightly. "This wouldn't have happened without you," he whispered. She smiled and placed her hand on his cheek. "All I did was remind you of who you are." The years that followed were peaceful and happy. The mansion became a place of warmth again. His wife treated his mother with deep respect, often seeking her advice and listening to her stories. They shared meals, laughter, and moments of quiet understanding. It was everything his mother had ever wished for her son, to see him happy, kind, and loved by someone who truly understood the meaning of family. One evening, many months later, as they all sat together watching the sunset, his mother turned to her son and said, "Do you see how everything came full circle? You faced pain, but it brought you wisdom. You faced loss, but it taught you love." He smiled softly. "I see it now. Everything that happened led me here." She nodded. "That's how life works. Sometimes it breaks us just enough to open our hearts." As the sun disappeared behind the trees, the garden glowed with a golden light. The air was calm and the sound of laughter drifted through the open windows. In that moment, the billionaire realized something he would carry with him forever. That true wealth had nothing to do with money, power, or success. It lived in the quiet grace of those who loved without conditions, in the peace that came from doing what was right, and in the gratitude that filled every ordinary day. He looked at his mother and his wife and felt his heart overflow with contentment. The world outside might still see him as a man of riches, but he knew the truth. His real treasure was right there with him, the love of a mother who had taught him compassion and the love of a woman who lived by it. And as the night settled softly over the mansion, he finally understood the simple truth his mother had always tried to teach him: that kindness, above all, is the only legacy worth leaving behind.